if you could briefly tell us about, your journey as a creative and an artist, that would be great. But more specifically, I would love if you could tell us what ideas and elements you are currently exploring or are interested in within your practice for me.
I guess in terms of what I'm interested in, art for me is, or just being creative for me has always really been about, exploration and fun and play. And I think I still really get inspired when I like see something that attracts me and I'm like, oh, how can I use this or how can I manipulate this and like
Mm.
take the essence of what this thing is and see how I can build on it, or if not build on it, how can I present it or accentuate it. So I think at the core, before I get into like, oh, the work's about identity or it's about politics or it's about experience, I think it's about play for me. And I think I can start to build these things I've been thinking about, but I can apply them to that object the same way I could make a song and apply things I'm thinking about to the song, or I could do writing or make maybe like a piece of clothing. And I think that for me, art is like it's focused on the play and the practice of tinkering with stuff. So that's been like my main focus. And then on the extreme end of that, I think it's been like real strategic positioning. And I don't necessarily love to put those things together, like I don't love the pressure of art having to deal with strategy and like politics in the sense of like, oh, how do I get this? How do I show here? How do I sell work?
Mm.
But I think those have kind of been like two things I've been kind of hyper focused on trying to do for myself. So like keeping the art real, but also making sure that I'm able to participate in what's happening in the art world.
I can relate to that. I can relate to just the idea that you don't want to lose a sense of play within your work and dealing with like all the pressures of that within the art ecosystem. So I want to ask you how you see the art ecosystem, like what does that mean to you when we talk about structure and we recognize the fact that we're artists and we're creatives, but we also exist within a system made up of so many players, right? So I want to ask you about that. But you talked about play, and I would like to know like how are you constantly playing, within your practice, especially when you have to do it. You talked about play and then you talked about positioning. How do you make sure like you're constantly playing and then meeting the needs of those around you?
I think with the play, it's always about trying to make something new. I think so often as artists, you can get into a system, especially when you start selling work, that you're like, okay, I'm going to produce for the market or I'm going to produce for collectors that still maybe haven't gotten their work from you. I think sometimes also artists make something and everyone's like, I want one, I want one, I want that version, I want the work that's from this body of work. And I've always liked this idea of like things have to end. You can't make the same stuff forever. I remember listening to an interview with Jerry Saltz and he talks about the magic of, making fire. Caveman in the cave, you make fire and you present it to the world and people are wowed. And it's like you have to go back into the cave and like make fire or like do some new alchemy where you make a new thing. And I think that's how you keep the play and the curiosity maybe and interest. At least for me, that's what I'm interested in doing in my practice. And like I don't know if that's always so easy when people have celebrated you for other work or you're making stuff that like isn't able to sell and you have to be okay with that. And that's where the system comes into play because it's like not everything you're going to make as an artist is even for the public, right? Like some of these things you make for yourself, no one will see them. And I think it takes having a system or a strategy, let's call it, to even continue exploring and making art. I mean, I do a lot of residencies. I think that's another avenue to be able to like find support to work on new ideas where they're welcomed. So that has kind of been my approach most recently, where it's like, hey, am I traveling? Am I putting myself in situations where I can be inspired and I'm not just in the studio in this kind of routine? And then working with different mediums. Like I've been taking a lot of film photography, and on my travels, I've also been recording audio. And it's like, I don't necessarily know how I want to use these things, but I'm kind of just hoarding material and like waiting for the opportunity to like look back at it and work on it.